Hi guys, Tausif here with Walk and Talk Cricket. Today we'll talk about Harbhajan Singh and a little comparison with Ravi Ashwin. So yeah, when you talk about finger spin, so we've got historically there are heaps of spin bowlers or the finger spin bowlers India has produced. So it goes all the way back to Venu Mankad, the left arm spin bowler, and he was obviously left arm orthodox, but he was also a batsman. And then I would say one of the big names post Second World War was Prasanna. I've heard great things about him. I've read a lot of books where a few people talked about him, and yeah, he was rated very high. His stats probably don't reflect it, but I would say he was the first off-spinning legend India has produced. He's played 49 test matches, taken 189 wickets, and yeah, so that's where the off-spin bowling starts, or the finger spin bowling and then Bishan Singh Bedi, left arm, beautiful action, yeah, just guile in the air and good flight and drop. So amazing, again amazing spin bowler. It took more than 260 wickets in 67 test matches. So yeah, and that's a series of bowlers who came through, and then after that there are a few in 80s, Ashwin, I can remember, and then moving on to 90s, Raju, in 80s Shastri as well, but he's all-rounder. And then, like, you know, obviously 1997 came Harbhajan Singh. India already had a very good spin bowler, leg spin bowler in Kumble. So Harbhajan Singh kind of like hit the headlines and within first 2-3 years of his career, and yeah, in all formats, not all formats, obviously test and one days. We didn't have T20s back then, and yeah, it's just stood up when needed and won some games for India. And then afterwards, obviously the next notable off-spin bowler was Ravi Ashwin, and Ashwin's got some amazing stats. So today's episode will just talk about Harbhajan Singh and Ashwin and how do they compare. So obviously statistically Ashwin is way ahead. He's way ahead of, I think, any other spin bowler. I mean, Ashwin's Harbhajan played I think over 103 games, taken 417 wickets at an average of 32, strike rate of 68, whereas Ashwin has already taken 442 wickets in 86 games. I mean, obviously it's more innings these days, 162 innings, and he's averaging 24, strike rate of 52. Strike rate of 52 is amazing. However, nowadays, like, the batsmen obviously don't have the same patience as they used to. So if you look at like guys like Prasanna, and these guys have a really high strike rates because back in the day people were not giving away the wickets, you know. Anyway, so how do they compare overall? So I guess, like, if we talk about era, so it's quite subjective, obviously. I would say India, I've watched test matches in India from mid-90s all the way till now, actually, whenever I could. I think the wickets are a lot worse now for batting than they used to be. I mean some of the tracks in the last 2-3 years are terrible, and no wonder, like, you know, obviously even India struggled, you know. I think Joe Root took a fifer, if I'm not wrong. So yeah, so I think the tracks have changed a lot. Most of the games probably won't last for 5 days if you know, if it's turning square on day one. So that's another thing with it's hard to compare, tough to compare the two, because Harbhajan Singh, when he played, the tracks were, I would say, more sort of, it will start turning on maybe day 2, you know, but it won't be turning square like it has been in the last 2-3 years from day 1. So I think that's obviously Ashwin has that advantage. So but I mean, they both have played overseas as well, so we'll just use different parameters to gauge. Again, it's quite subjective. As I said, the quality of batting Harbhajan Singh has bowled against was definitely better. The quality of pitches Harbhajan Singh bowled at was definitely more batting friendly than spin bowling friendly. So keeping that in mind, Harbhajan Singh averaged 32 and Ashwin 24. So if we talk about home and away, so at home Harbhajan Singh has played 55 games and taken 265 wickets at an average of 28, strike rate of 64. Whereas Ashwin at home has taken 312 wickets at an average of 21, strike rate of 47, and that is amazing strike rate for a spin bowler or any bowler. However, as I said, like, you know, last 4-5, maybe 3-4-5 years, some of the tracks India played on were terrible. Terrible, like, you know, it's an understatement. It's like, actually, you know, I couldn't define it. It's probably worse than terrible. And as I said, like, you know, it's not, it doesn't reflect the, you know, obviously the quality of bowler Harbhajan Singh was in comparison, because his stats are not as good, but I think he bowled against better oppositions on the tracks that had for something for spinners, but not as much as what Ashwin has bowled at. Okay, so the second thing we look at is, like, obviously the away records. So and that's a good gauge as well for Indian spin bowlers or subcontinent spin bowlers, how they do overseas. So away, Harbhajan Singh has played 48 test matches and taken 152 wickets at an average of 38.9. Now that's about 20% higher than his average in his career average, whereas strike rate is 76. In comparison, Ashwin has played 34 test matches, obviously less test matches overseas. Probably India doesn't pick him in a few overseas games. He's taken 126 wickets at an average of 31 and at a strike rate of 65. So obviously average and strike rate have gone up. Again, like, average has gone up by good, I think 25% at least, maybe 30%. The average is close to 30% gone up. So that's probably a huge change. And the thing is, like, you know, India didn't pick Ashwin in a lot of overseas test matches, whereas I guess, like, similar with Harbhajan, because we had Kumble playing as well. So there's another parameter we use, is like how they feature in the first innings of a test match. Generally, first innings, like, you know, if you're bowling first, the tracks are at their best when it in terms of, you know, obviously spin bowlers. So if we compare the two, so we're talking about first innings of a test match where India was bowling first. It's in 59 innings, Harbhajan Singh has taken 122 wickets at an average of 41 and strike rate of 83. He took 9 fifers. Ashwin, whereas on the other hand, has played 37, bowled in 37 innings, bowling first, taken 102 wickets at an average of 29 and a strike rate of 63. So I guess, like, even in that regard, obviously Ashwin has done better. And I must say that at home, Ashwin has been opening the bowling as well. I think Harbhajan Singh has probably opened the bowling twice in his whole career, and from my memory, Ashwin has opened the bowling heaps of times in the last 3-4 years in the home test matches. And then it comes to, like, obviously if you're bowling in third and fourth innings, again, like, you know, Harbhajan Singh in third inning averaging 25. Third inning is usually played on, you know, day 4, probably day 4, so day 3-4. So he's averaging 25, 139 wickets in 57 innings, strike rate of 56, and it took 9 fifers. Whereas third innings, Ashwin has taken 135 wickets in 48 innings, average of 23.6 and 9 fifers. So quite similar records. And the fourth inning, again, that's your sort of, you know, if you're playing on a dry wicket, your day 4 is where you kind of win the games. And Harbhajan Singh on day 4 averages 28 on fourth inning, averages 28 with the ball, and has taken 45 wickets and 32 innings. So that's probably you know, 1.3 wickets per innings in the fourth inning. In comparison, Ashwin has taken 85 wickets in 29 innings. It's almost three wickets per inning in the 4th innings, and he's averaging 18. I guess, like, you know, obviously a lot of these games were played in India, but you know, still you've got to win the game. So I think Ashwin definitely is ahead there. Okay, so in terms of the games India has won, that's another parameter we use, because in the wins, how they contributed. So the games India has won, Harbhajan Singh played in 42 test matches that India has won. It took 221 wickets, averaging 22.7 with the ball, which is very good, and strike rate 53. It took 15 fifers and 4 tenfers. On the other hand, Ashwin has won 50 test matches, 310 wickets, 25 fifers and 6 tenfers, and averaging 18. So definitely Ashwin's got better average there. And there's one more parameter we use, the strongest team of that era. Unfortunately, like in Ashwin's era, there's no really one team that stands out. Pretty much most of the teams are strong at home and struggle overseas, including Australia. So anyways, we'll just use Australia as the Australia as a criteria, for example. And to be honest, like, you know, 90s, when Harbhajan Singh did play, Australia was very, very strong. Probably, you know, the strongest team ever, you know. So against Australia, Harbhajan Singh played 18 test matches, took 95 wickets, average of 29, 7 fifers, 3 tenfers, and strike rate of 61. Now that's amazing against that team. Whereas Ashwin against Australia has taken 89 wickets in 18 games, average of 31 and strike rate of 69, and that's a lot higher than his career strike rate. So the two Australian teams, I would say Harbhajan Singh bowled against a lot stronger and better Australian team than Ashwin did, and he still had better records. So I guess, like, you know, Harbhajan Singh obviously likes the challenge. One thing, and the last parameter we always use is how spin bowlers bowl in Australia. Being a spin bowling coach, I would say it's really hard, because Kookaburra ball on flat decks that bounce, but consistent tracks, it's probably one of the hardest things to do. And there's no wonder Harbhajan Singh only played 4 test matches in Australia, took 9 wickets. The reason for 4 test matches is obviously Kumble was there, and it's hard to play 2 spinners apart from maybe Sydney, and Kumble and Harbhajan both were okay-ish with bat, but they're not like good number 7s, so they had to play with 1 spinner. His average is 73 there, and strike rate is 120. So almost he was taking a wicket every 21 overs. That's pretty poor. On the other hand, Ashwin has played 10 test matches, 39 wickets in Australia, average of 42, which is a lot higher than his career average, and strike rate of 86, again a lot higher than his career strike rate. I guess, like, Ashwin still probably had more success than Harbhajan did in Australia, and I said, like, you know, the batting Australia had in 90s and 2000s is a lot stronger than what Ashwin has bowled to. So, you know, it's fair play, I think. I would say Ashwin still did better, and because Ashwin can bat, I mean, I know Harbhajan Singh has two international or one-day hundreds or test hundreds, but I think Ashwin could bat at number 7 and get away with it, whereas Harbhajan Singh was a good number 8. So so I think Ashwin obviously did better in Australia. Possibly he was a frontline spinner. Now the thing is, one more thing which we can say that probably Harbhajan Singh has a little bit of disadvantage was the legend Kumble was still playing for India. So I think that's a tough one, because Kumble himself was taking wickets, you know, it's more than 600 test wickets. So, and on the side, Harbhajan Singh has taken 400. So, you know, it's tough on Harbhajan Singh to bowl alongside Kumble. By saying so, I think now they've got obviously Jadeja with over 200 test wickets for India. So that's like a spin bowling partner for Ashwin, but there's no comparison between Ashwin, there's no comparison between Jadeja and Kumble. So I think Harbhajan Singh had it tough than Ashwin. However, Ashwin has won more games for India than Harbhajan did. Again, their roles were slightly different, could be slightly different, because Ashwin was the front line, the best top spinner, and Harbhajan Singh was one of the two. Man of the Series awards, 9 to Ashwin, 6 to Harbhajan Singh. Man of the Match awards, 9 to Ashwin and 4 to Harbhajan Singh. And Man of the Match awards, 8 to Ashwin and 6 to Harbhajan Singh. So they're pretty close in terms of what they've achieved for India. Obviously, Ashwin definitely won more games in recent times, and Harbhajan Singh, I would say, Harbhajan Singh, the series India won against Australia in, I think it was 2001. I watched the whole test match where India won after falling on, and it was amazing effort by Harbhajan Singh. He kind of I think that was the best Australian team, and he had them in trouble. So, and in both innings as well. So he was bowling well in the first and the second innings. It wasn't just taking wickets on the second innings. And the tracks were not as, I would say, the tracks were not as spinner friendly as they have been for Ashwin. So I mean, that series in particular, where Harbhajan Singh was just he announced himself on the biggest stage, although he was already playing international cricket for 3-4 years. So I mean, I don't know if it's not really fair to say who was better between the two, was the better of the two. I think they both have their own strengths. Harbhajan Singh, obviously, just twist of the back when he was loading and releasing, and Ashwin more shoulder high action. Completely different bowlers. I think Harbhajan Singh was unofficially reported for throwing, and there were talks about Ashwin as well. But any off spinner who's kind of opening up a little bit early will be suspected to throw. But I think they both came out clean. So in terms of the bowling variations, I think they're completely different bowlers, to be honest. Ashwin probably, I would say, more dangerous to left-handers than I would say Harbhajan Singh. Harbhajan Singh was probably equally dangerous to the right-handers as well. I can't say that about Ashwin on a good track. He was still effective, obviously, but I think Harbhajan Singh was he just kind of created a doubt in batsman's mind at a good pace to go forward or not, and he got a few batsmen leg before wicket or caught in the short leg. One more thing is unassisted dismissals. That's the last criteria I'm using. So that's 96 unassisted dismissal by Harbhajan Singh. That's either caught and bowled or LB. So that's around 25% of his wickets, whereas 196 unassisted dismissals by Ashwin. So definitely that's 45%. I think that's huge for a spin bowler in Test cricket. But I guess nowadays India is not producing the best wickets, but on the other hand, the batsmen are not as equipped as well. So fair play on Ashwin on those many bowls and LBs and caught and bowls. So yeah, just my verdict. If I had to pick one between the two, as of today, because Ashwin is still playing, I would say I would probably still pick Ashwin ahead of Harbhajan, mainly because I think Ashwin bowled less bad balls. Harbhajan Singh in between did bowl some bad balls. I know it's not the best criteria, but I mean, average strike rate, all the stats are in Ashwin's favor, but as I said, the stats are quite subjective because Harbhajan Singh played in a different era, and the tracks were different, and the quality of opposition was definitely higher. Even then, the difference in the strike rates and averages is huge. If I had to pick one out of the two to play overseas, I would probably pick Harbhajan. The reason for that is like Ashwin is just not yeah, he's not as consistent in overseas conditions as he is at home. So overall I would say Ashwin, overseas Harbhajan Singh, and at home in India definitely Ashwin. Thank you so much for watching. We'll carry on doing our videos. Bye bye.